Welcome back to State of the Association. I'm your host, Nash Roberts. Today we're going to talk about how the NBA is more talented than ever. We had two guys drop 50 in the same night. The potential of the NBA Cup as years go by for it to become a real serious tournament and gain some prestige and really be the tournament that Adam Silver had truly envisioned and wants it to be, and a lot more on today's episode of State of the Association. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host. Came out and said Nash recently Roberts. That the Los Angeles Clippers, they kind of feel like a B team, like the little brother to the Los Angeles Lakers. And this has really been exemplified by fans not necessarily showing up and packing out the Intuit Dome, at least to full capacity. And there's definitely some truth in that. The Intuit Dome itself is quite a big turning point, or was supposed to be a big turning point in Clippers franchise history. It was when they moved out of the same arena that they played in, where they shared an arena with the Los Angeles Lakers, one of the most storied franchises, if not the most storied franchise in all of NBA history. And so when you're in that stadium, you're always going to be the number two to the Lakers. People are going to be more likely to go see that Lakers game at Crypto.com, formerly Staples, than they are to see the Los Angeles Clippers. But then moving out of that, that was supposed to be a big turning point where the Los Angeles Clippers truly became their own franchise. They stepped out from the shadows of the Los Angeles Lakers, and their owner, credit to him, he has done a lot of stuff in that direction to really just make that stadium a really good fan experience. You can tell he is an owner that really cares about the game, which is something you can't always say. However, for the Clippers in the new arena, it has just kind of marked another turning point, and that is more so with the roster. They lose Paul George, he never gets to play, and then it went to a dome. And they keep Kawhi and Harden. However, Kawhi has not played a game this season. And it's cliche, but it is really the Clippers being the Clippers. This is a team that, whether it's in the playoffs, having early exits, disappointing exits, or just in general kind of being that B team to the Los Angeles Lakers, you're going out and doing it again by having lower attendance into a dome than what one would normally expect, especially with a new arena. And part of that does come down to the roster because you have guys like Kawhi, like James Harden, but Kawhi's been injured, and James Harden, he's not the same player that he once was. He's certainly not MVP Harden, top scorer in the league anymore. And most of that roster, there's not a lot of intriguing prospects. So people are going to be more likely to go want to see an MVP and DPOY candidate over on the Los Angeles Lakers as well as a top two player of all time. So once again, as a result of their roster this time, the Clippers have been little broed once again by the Los Angeles Lakers. And despite a new arena, they still feel like the B team to the Lakers when they really should be coming into their own. That was the whole point of this. They really haven't. And I believe that over time, it is a good move that the Clippers will be able to build their own new brand identity with this new arena especially, right? However, right now, you're still under the shadow of the Los Angeles Lakers, and that's always going to be a thing, being in the same city as perhaps the most storied franchise in NBA history. However, that does still not deny the fact that they are and still feel like the B team to the Los Angeles Lakers, the little brother to them, despite how good they might be. They could win a championship. That would be the really own thing that would really separate them and take them out of the shadow, would be winning a championship. And the Clippers have had a history of playoff failures. Over time, it's only going to get better, but they still do absolutely feel like the little brother to the Los Angeles Lakers through no fault of their own, especially no fault through the owner. He's really tried. He really cares about basketball, but to be in the same city as such a historic franchise, grass isn't always greener, moving from San Diego over to LA in this case. Over time, with this new arena, they'll be able to carve out their own path, but right now they are still definitively the little brother to the Los Angeles Lakers, no matter what they do on the court, really. And Paul George is definitely correct about that, and about them feeling like taking a lot more threes this year. And up until this 50-point game most recently, he's got a lot of criticism just for the fact that this is a guy who was perceived as being a generational prospect, perhaps the best prospect we've seen since LeBron James, and that term gets utilized a lot, but it really looks like the case of Wemby. He had a great rookie year, and he's got all of the physical talents that you would need, a 7'4" guy who can do a little bit of everything. but he got off to quite a slow start. Kind of had a little bit of a sophomore slump to start the year, and that's common. But when you have a guy that's hyped up as much as Wemby, it becomes less acceptable by the general fan base. And a lot of that came down to the amount of threes he was taking. Because for a 7'4" guy who's shooting low percentages from three, the consensus kind of is, hey, just get in the paint, do your thing there, like you did all last season. And that is true in terms of if the Spurs were trying to win games right now. But they aren't. Especially when Vassell was out to start the year. The Spurs didn't really have any high prospects to even be a proper play-in team, definitely not a playoff team. So really what the Spurs are doing here with Wemby taking more threes, it's all in an aid to help his development. And because Wemby, yes, he's got the talent, all the talent in the world, but the one thing that he has really lacked over his career over in France, over his first tenure in the NBA here, has been the three-point shot. And he'll take them for sure, but he has been relatively inefficient. And the Spurs, what they're doing is they're having Wemby go out on the perimeter and be taking threes. And it's an aid to, one, build his confidence from that area. And he's got confidence for sure, but it just came down to the shots not really falling. So as they fall more and more, you're going to get more confident from the area and just be confident to light it up in the future. But the second part, that efficiency part, as you take more threes and take those reps in game, that's going to help you a lot more than taking an open three in a training facility. We see the Ben Simmons videos every year of him hitting middies and threes in an open arena, in an open gym, no one guarding him, right? Anyone can do that, especially in the NBA. Everyone's so talented. But for Wemby to have him develop his three-point shot, take more threes, be confident in it, and just become a better shooter in real time, that's what the Spurs are doing. And in future years, I don't expect Wemby to shoot the ball as much from beyond the arc as he is this season. It's much like the Spurs did last year with the Jeremy Sohan point guard experiment. Jeremy Sohan is not your long-term answer at point guard, but what he is a guy who has the potential to take some of the ball handling load off of the point guard and create for others. And you put that into overdrive by developing him and his point guard skills in real time in live games. And as a result, when he needs to create for others in the future, he can. And, you don't have to live in the Jeremy Sohan point guard experiment anymore. But because of the time that you gave him in game to develop that and hone his craft against other proper NBA defenders, I think that's going to be really good for Jeremy Sohan's development. And I think this shooting threes thing is much the same thing for Wemby. He's going to step back on the threes in the future. He's going to take less, but he's going to be able to, he's going to have the confidence to take them when he needs to, and he's going to be hitting more frequently. That's the end goal here. And his efficiency hasn't been great to start the year, and it's kind of been a sophomore slump up till this 50-point game, but it will get better. And this season is just all about Wemby's development, especially from beyond the arc. The Spurs have an end goal in mind. It's not just Wemby chucking up threes for no reason. There's always a plan. The Spurs are great at developing players, and you can argue with their methods, but at the end of the day, in a couple of years, if Wemby's three-point percentages are up, then we can really point to this moment and say that it worked, and it was the right choice. Dropping 50 last night. Giannis had 59, and a lot of players had great games last night. They had generational performances, and it just kind of shows the level of talent that has just infiltrated the league, quite frankly. And I think the league as a whole is more talented than it has ever been. And on the star end, your top 5 to 10-ish players, I don't think that they're significantly more talented than the guys of the past. You can watch film sometimes of a player from past generations and say, oh, this guy had no bag. But I think Magic Johnson is a good example. You could argue that he looked stiff when he was dribbling the ball, but that was also a result of the rules in place at the time, because they were a lot less lenient on travels and stuff back then and didn't allow for as much free movement on the dribble. So that's why Magic Johnson kind of looked stiff dribbling the ball. So I don't want to use it to discredit stars of other eras. I think they're just as talented as the players of today. However, when you start going to the third and fourth options and the rest of the team, that is where the talent really shows and where it's much better than the rest of the league has been in NBA history. You put D'Angelo Russell in the 90s or something, they would think that he's a top point guard in the league. Dennis Schroeder, a French starter to bench point guard, he's great for Germany. He hasn't quite had the same success in the NBA. It's the same thing. He would he would be a great point guard back in the day, just because I believe that he has a lot more talent. And he just doesn't get the opportunity to really show that because everyone in the NBA right now has so much talent. And you can see with Malachi Flynn dropping 50, that's not just a result of defense. There's the argument that defenses are worse, and there can be some truth to that. But in general, the main point why offenses are scoring more and more often now is that defense can still be good, but the offense has gotten even better. And you see players like Malachi Flynn dropping 50, KPJ dropping 50, and 10 assists a couple years ago. And I do firmly believe that some role players today, some eighth men in the rotation, they could absolutely be starters in another NBA era. The league as a whole just has gotten a lot better, and highlight tapes can say a lot. They can say a lot that's kind of misleading. And I don't want to say that the athletic prowess of today's players is necessarily that much greater, because if you look at combine drills, such as the vertical, the court sprint, all of those, athletes have not gotten significantly better in the NBA compared to past eras. However, what they have gotten better at is the opportunity to utilize that talent on the court. And that's where their talent is really showing, because you've got to have the confidence that goes with it. And they've got all the confidence in the world, and they're able to utilize their talents more effectively than players of years past. And just with all the training that they get to have, the NBA is more talented than ever, and that's only a good thing for the league. That is not a discredit to players of years past. That is not an argument that this is the best version of the NBA that we have ever seen. It is just a compliment to today's players and their abilities. And it really seems like the NBA puts more effort into this than they do the finals. They go out and decorate the courts. They've got their trophies. They've got banners for the Lakers last year. The NBA is putting in a lot of effort to make this NBA Cup work. It's a testament to Adam Silver and his vision, because as much flack as the NBA Cup might get for being really unnecessary, Adam Silver has his vision for what he wants it to be, and he's done well at really crafting that vision and kind of turning it into something that maybe fans can care about via these new additions. And sometimes the courts are kind of ugly, and sometimes, the banner that the Lakers have, that might not really be treated the same way as a championship banner, and that's absolutely justified. And in general, people may not really see the need to have an in-season tournament. However, Silver knows what he wants it to be, and he's doing everything in his power to make the NBA Cup something special. We notably also have some very interesting matchups in this first round of it. And I think that's just another example of Silver maybe working with schedule makers or giving them a memo that you should have some notable games in the NBA Cup to really get people invested to tune into the game and see the court and say, hey, this is an in-season tournament game. Maybe this NBA Cup does have something to it after all. Only tell if it does truly work out. And a lot of that comes into just if fans are going to buy into it, because there's a large portion of the NBA audience that are very indifferent. They could really care less about an NBA Cup. And if the fans don't truly care, then no one will, because these are going to be people that are showing up to the games, that might be getting extra excited for an in-season tournament game, that might pull up to the finals of it. And so it really does come down to fan support for it. But Silver's really doing all that he can to kind of drum up that fan support, as I've talked about previously. And there is a precedent for it. We see it in major European soccer leagues especially, where they will have in-season tournaments within the league itself, or sometimes interdivisionally, where they will have different leagues come in, like the Champions League, where it's top European clubs all around Europe competing. But they will also have domestic tournaments. And those domestic tournaments really do matter. Well, it might never be the same as a league, as winning the whole league, especially in an American audience. It won't quite be the same. It won't hold the same prestige as an NBA trophy. Domestic tournaments are something that has worked in other sports in the past. And so if you're able to introduce it in the NBA and do all that you can to really make it different, set it apart, have good matchups, and really look to make it matter, as Adam Silver is really seemingly trying to do, then fans might be able to buy in and they might get more interested in it year by year as we see it become an annual thing. And as a result of that, it does gain some prestige. And it doesn't have much now just because it's so new. And we haven't really seen it on an annual basis. And last year, the Lakers, they didn't have a great playoff run. And they were the in-season tournament champions. So that could kind of take away from this prestige because this wasn't necessarily a dominant team. But as the years go by, the NBA Cup is going to continue to be more and more prominent, and it's never going to be the NBA championship. But it is something that can draw viewers into the regular season because so often some members of the NBA audience, they might only really tune in after the All-Star break because that's when the games start mattering more. In the 82-game season, not every game is going to matter as much. So to have an NBA Cup mid-season where you can make those November games matter, that's an idea that has the potential to really work, and Adam Silver himself is really trying. So as time goes on, the NBA Cup has the potential to gain a lot more prestige and be a lot more serious, something that can really be taken seriously as a proper tournament in the NBA. It's just kind of in an experimental phase right now. And as time goes on, we will really be able to tell if the NBA Cup was an investment that was really worth all the effort. I believe that it surely will be, and especially if we see teams that go on to have good playoff runs, we see teams that are really properly great that might maybe even win the NBA championship. They're the same teams that win the in-season tournament. That could really elevate the prestige of it because it's proper teams that you can really take seriously. That would be something huge. And as the years go by, there's going to be more opportunities for that. There's going to be new courts, regardless of how those may look. And as time goes on, the NBA Cup is just going to get more prominent and more prominent. Adam Silver has a vision, and he is committed to it. And it has the potential to work out. Long term, we will see. But I believe that the NBA Cup does have the potential to be something greater than it currently is. We've seen the precedent in other leagues. It's just something that comes with time. And in a nation like America, who is so invested on sports as an entertainment product, we've got nothing but time. The NBA will be afloat for sure for many, many years to come. And that gives the NBA Cup a lot of opportunity to go out and define itself as a tournament to be taken seriously, which, if that was to be the case, that would only be positive for the league and its players because they have someone else to root for and to play for, especially in November regular season games of State of the Association. Thanks for listening. This was not my favorite episode, to say the least. I feel like a lot of the stuff I've put out recently has been significantly better than this, but we're just trying to get better each and every time, and it's a process for sure. But we just gotta maintain the consistency. We gotta maintain quality, and that's the main goal. Ultimately, is to entertain the audience. And there were some good segments in here. I believe there was potential for this to be a quite good episode. Ultimately, it didn't turn out quite the way I'd hoped, but we're trying to get better each and every time. Thanks for tuning in. I've been your host. Nash Roberts, and this has been State of the Association. Thank you.